Newsflash, President Trump has just ramped up the gears even more on the left-wing radical lamestream media. In case you hadn't heard, he has filed a $15 billion defamation lawsuit against the New York Times, and rightfully so. How many years have we watched the New York Times, The View, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC blatantly lie? And the latest victim was Jimmy Kimmel, who went on his show to air out how MAGA was gaining points off of the Charlie Kirk shooter when nothing could be more from the truth. The evidence has shown he was radicalized in school. Yes, parents were Trump supporters, but at that school, Utah Valley, allegedly, he was radicalized, was living with a transgender boyfriend, had all types of hateful messages in the Discord. So we know that now. But you listen to the lamestream media, they're doing this both sidesism. Well, it's got to calm down on both sides. No, it's one side. And for Jimmy Kimmel to take to his show to spew propaganda, that's why President Trump is pulling out the big guns. He already has sued ABC with George Stephanopoulos. He already has sued over the Kamala Harris editing by 60 Minutes. Now, this one, there's irrefutable proof that the New York Times has done nothing but slander his name, slander Republicans, and do everything they can to stop this America First movement. So as you see, the title, President Trump filed $15 billion defamation lawsuit against the New York Times. And guess where he filed it? In my home state of Florida. But I want you to check out these video clips and listen to how the lamestream media is trying to handle this. Now, this is Newsmax. And Newsmax, they try to keep it as center as possible. So let's check out what Newsmax has to say. Then I got another clip I want you to check out. Check this one out.
Welcome back. The president is suing the New York Times and 4 of its reporters for defamation, seeking $15 billion in damages, posting on Truth Social. It's a defamation and libel lawsuit against one of the worst and most degenerate newspapers in the history of the country, becoming a virtual mouthpiece for the radical left Democrat Party. The Times has engaged in a decades-long method of lying about your favorite president, my family, business, and the America First movement, MAGA, and our nation as a whole. They practice this long-term intent and pattern of abuse, which is both unacceptable and illegal. The New York Times has been allowed to freely lie, smear, and defame me for far too long, and that stops now. There is the tweet. Alejandro Brito is the attorney handling the suit. And, sir, it's good to have you back on the show. So, I'm looking at this one. Like, I saw ABC, PBS, CBS, NBC, all these that are kind of under the FCC. I see them one way. New York Times is just a private media company that hates Trump. It makes me wonder, it feels like this is different. Is it not?
It is different for a variety of reasons, but primarily because of the extent that we believe the New York Times went to in order to advocate against President Trump and the timing of it, which was not coincidental from the allegations of the complaint. These events were taking place in September, October, leading up to the election. And putting aside the timing, the volume of misinformation and fraudulent statements and defamatory statements that we've alleged in the complaint were made is something that sets this case apart.
So it's not about the fact that the New York Times obviously hates Trump and wants to help ensure that he doesn't win elections. There's nothing, I don't think there's a suit there. It's more about the fact that they defamed him in that process. There's a defamation aspect to it.
There is. There's multiple allegations in the complaint about the defamatory statements that were made, not only in 3 separate pieces that were written, but also in a book that authors of the New York Times published just immediately prior to the election. And these allegations are not simply evidence of the fact that the New York Times doesn't like the president, but that they went out of their way with actual malice to make defamatory and false statements about the president.
Can you give us an example of just a little bit of that before I let you go?
There's so many to account for, Rob, that it's laid out in the complaint. But in sum or substance, the allegations about how the president operated his businesses leading up to the election, how he conducted his affairs, the nature of how he came into his wealth, all of these things which are demonstrably false were published not only in the New York Times, but also in these books.
Published as fact in those books. Okay, that clarifies it a lot for me. Alejandro Brito handling this case. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
So as we just heard from Trump's own lawyers, they defamed him in books. And they defamed him. We know they defamed him in the outlet, in the publications. And there's nothing easier to beat when you've got the proof right there in your hand. So rightfully so. How many of you have been waiting on The View to be pulled off the air, for MSDNC to be yanked off the air, for CNN to go back to what they used to be? CNN was the staple for fair and balanced news. That's why they got so big. But if you look now, CNN is dead last. They're behind MSDNC. Even though I believe the MSDNC numbers are pumped up because there's not that many radical leftists. I don't like to believe that there's a million radical leftists that love that network, but maybe there are. But CNN is even lower than them when they used to be number one. And it's all behind all of this defaming propaganda, left-wing extremist crap. And then when it's flipped on them, when people start on the left start losing their jobs, when people on the left start being canceled, they start crying victim. You know, it's just like when Charlie Kirk's life was taken, all they cheer. Imagine what they would do if somebody went out there and started plucking people off with MAGA written on cartridges and bullets. These people would be calling for blood. But again, on the right, we're not doing that. We're just saying, hey, words have consequences. So check out this next clip by Bloomberg. Now, one thing about Bloomberg, it's hard to tell whether they like Trump, can't stand Trump. I tell you what, they love Trump when the markets are doing well. But other than that, their propaganda arm doesn't like them speaking too favorably of them. So let's see what they got to say in this clip. I haven't seen this yet, so I'll be checking it out for the first time with you. Let's see.
Now, separately, Trump also filed a $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times. Can you give us some details around that?
Yes, this was lodged, a suit, late on Monday night. It was taken in the state of Florida, obviously a Republican stronghold and basically the home of Donald Trump and his family now. And in this lawsuit, Donald Trump accuses the New York Times of being a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party. He takes issue with a book that was written by two New York Times reporters, as well as other articles. It's a big figure, 15 billion, well past the New York Times market cap. And it represents the latest attempt by Donald Trump to sue American news organizations. We've seen similar efforts when it comes to ABC, CBS, and we saw some settlements in this case.
If you're enjoying this video, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up, because I'll never ask you for a cash app or a super chat. You hitting that like button is more than enough. Helps get the information out there. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. And whether you're already subscribed or subscribing now, make sure that you hit the notification bell and you select all. YouTube has been having issues with notifications unless you select all. So by selecting all, YouTube will make sure you get notified the next time I upload new videos.
In those cases. So yes, definitely a further escalation in terms of Donald Trump's relationship with the media.
Yes, and as you said, we have seen that he's had some success with this kind of attitude. What has been the response from the New York Times?
And so far, we're waiting to hear from the New York Times on this, whether they're going to fight this case. As I say, it refers to a book that was written by two New York Times reporters that is very critical of Donald Trump, as well as some articles. Trump also takes issue with the newspaper's backing of Kamala Harris in the last presidential campaign, as well as their criticisms in articles of Donald Trump. He talks about the criticism of him being unfit for office. So I think Donald Trump has made no secret of his views on what he sees as the mainstream media, but this definitely is a further escalation by the sitting president of the United States to yet again take on a pillar of the American system, in this instance, the media organization like the New York Times.
And rightfully freaking so. Kudos to you, President Trump. I love our president because he's not afraid to take the fight right to him. All he needed was the platform. If he would have tried this while he wasn't in office, wouldn't have been successful. The news cycles wouldn't have got it. But he's back now, and none of them expected it to happen. But because of you, it happened, and he's back now. So I'm extremely happy about it. But let's check this article out and see what this has to say very briefly. You've seen it. I've seen it for years. We've all watched the big media companies lie to our faces. They don't even pretend to be fair anymore, do they? Their power seemed total. Their agenda was obvious, and their targets were left with no way to fight back. And for the longest time, it seemed like they were untouchable. They could build up their friends and tear down anyone who got in their way, destroying good people without a second thought. Sound familiar? They operated as if they were a special class, above the rules that everyone else has to follow. Well, President Trump has just decided to tear up their rule book in a move that has the establishment shaking. He filed a massive $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times for defamation and libel, a proven strategy of victory. The elites in their ivory towers can laugh all they want, but this isn't just a stunt. President Trump has a winning record of holding the corrupt media accountable. Remember when they lied about him on ABC News? He sued, they paid him $15 million. Then CBS News tried the same thing with the bogus interview. He sued them too. They quickly settled for what could be upwards of $30 million. These people only understand one thing, hitting them where it hurts. The president isn't just complaining about the fake news, he's defeating them in court. The arrogance of the paper record. I want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this video, Chapter. And here's why. When my mom hit 65 years old, I watched her get bombarded with mailers, cold calls, and all these confusing ads about Medicare. And every single company pretended like they wanted to help her, but really they were just trying to sell her stuff. It seemed like the game was rigged and she was not supposed to win at all. And that's why I'm so excited to share information about Chapter with all of you. Now, who Chapter is? Chapter is a free Medicare advisory service that compares Medicare plans available, and they give you real, unbiased guidance. Chapter is completely independent and always puts customers first. As a matter of fact, at Chapter, the agents are salaried employees, so you don't have any fear or concerns of them trying to work to get commission of some kind. Their whole focus is all about making sure that their customers, the seniors, get the right Medicare supplement plan. And it's clear that they're making a real difference in the lives of seniors. So if you want real, unbiased help with Medicare, give Chapter a call at 402-527-1253. You'll talk to a real person who will help you figure out exactly which plan is right for you. Now, Chapter is totally free and has saved the average senior $1,000 a year. So I'm going to put the number here on the screen for you to be able to contact, or if you visit the website, go to askchapter.org/realpolitics. And what did the New York Times have to say for itself? Of course, they played the victim. Can you believe the nerve? A spokesperson called the lawsuit an intimidation tactic and claimed it was an attempt to stifle and discourage independent reporting. Independent from what? The truth? For years, the Times have used the First Amendment as a weapon to attack conservatives. They seem to think freedom of the press gives them the freedom to lie without consequence. Now that someone is finally punching back, they're crying foul. More than a lawsuit, a reckoning. Look, this fight is bigger than just President Trump. They haven't just been attacking him. They've been attacking you. They've been attacking your values for years. They have smeared the entire America First movement and everyone who believes in it. This lawsuit is for every American who has been ignored, mocked, and lied about by the corporate press. It is long overdue reckoning for an industry that has betrayed the public's trust to serve a political agenda. The days of conservatives just taking it on the chin are over. The game has changed. This isn't just another lawsuit. It's a signal that the era of unchecked media power is coming to an end, and it's about time. That's what I'm talking about. And if you want to know, this outlet is the Patriot Journal. They give it straight up and down. Of course, they're more conservative leaning, but what they said was spot on. How many times have you and I seen publications, seen reports that we knew were lies, but yet they're able to spew them? And then if you ever notice, when they're forced to apologize, they don't do it on the main channel. They don't even do it on their main social media pages. They always find the little subsidiary social media pages or one of their 3 a.m. network shows to say their apology or to tweet out or put it on X, their apology. I saw one media outlet, matter of fact, it was MSNBC, with Matthew Dowd said that horrific stuff after Charlie Kirk's life was taken. MSNBC made an apology and they put it out on X. But here's the difference. Their main MSNBC X page has 5 million followers. They had another MSNBC like airtime X page that had 23,000 followers. Guess which account the apology went out on? And if you said the 23,000 followers, you're 1,000% right. These people don't care, and they don't start paying attention to you. Hit them where it hurts. Hit them in that money. Hit them in their reputation. Nobody pays attention to them anymore anyway. But the fact is, they still can spew this stuff, and we got to get back to just report the facts, man. Just tell us what happened. Let us figure out which side we want to dance on, but just give it to us straight. And they've been breaking that since the 70s. If you don't remember, back in 1975, there was a Senate hearing in which the CIA was brought up. And at the time, the head of the CIA was a man named Dick Helms. And they asked Dick Helms, they said, hey, listen, does the CIA have any assets working in media? He had to answer yes. And then when they said, well, how many and what network? They literally said they had to shut the meeting down for national security, and he could not and would not talk about it in public. And that was in 1975. Can you imagine how much more sophisticated it is now? So President Trump doing this, it is bigger than just him. It is for you and I. Because who's to say you, one of your children, one of your family members don't do something great or something monumentous, but they dislike it. The left hates it, and they want to write a negative story and try to tear up their reputation. What if that happens? See, too many times we think like, well, it doesn't affect me. That's today. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So I applaud this by the Trump administration. I'm loving to watch the New York Times squirm, and I got my popcorn ready for the firefight. And let's see where it goes, right? So tell me what you think about it. I want to hear your comment. Do you believe what Trump is doing is justified, or do you believe that this is him exercising too much power? I'd love to know what you think. And if you stayed and hung out and watched the video up to this point, I want to say I thank you from the top and bottom of my heart. If you haven't already, hit that like button. And if you aren't subscribed, subscribe. Most importantly, I want you to stay safe and you be great. I'm Brian Maxwell saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.